Hello, and welcome to this episode of The Inner Estate. It's a special episode. I'm in Brentwood, Tennessee, instead of my usual Paradise Valley, Arizona location. And we have an excellent guest today, Kristen Hugins. Kristen, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
So, Kristen, one of the reasons I'm excited that you're our guest today is I feel so thrilled about the conversation we're going to have. You are the creative queen. You are a founder, owner, and head editor, chief editor of Joyful Communications. And you are someone that has a special knack for helping people share their story in a way that's compelling and meaningful. And not just businesswomen or business people. Sometimes it's writers, authors. We're going to get into all of that. But when I think about people craving connection, which I believe people right now are craving connection, and people wanting to share their story in a meaningful way, it's so key that we can meet people like you and learn from people like you. So instead of me blathering on, I would like to have you share with everyone, what do you do at Joyful Communications and how you impact people?
So at Joyful Communications, I and my team create compelling stories for business owners, for individuals that help them get their gift, their message out into the world in an effective way so that it feels meaningful to them and to their audience. Because like you said, that connection is vital. So we all do long for connection, and that is huge. That feels very much like one of my themes for this year is to expand connections for myself, for my clients, for everybody I interact with.
I think that's really exciting. And the key thing that you do day to day is that you are an editor, correct?
Correct. Editor and writer. So I do copywriting, ghostwriting, editing. I have newsletter clients I write monthly and quarterly newsletters for, as well as books that I ghostwrite and books that I edit. I love being in the book space. I also coach authors. I have a group called Authors in Action to help authors get their book written and out there into the world. So those are a few of the areas that I specialize in.
It's really, it is hard to describe in one word because you are a creative queen is a good phrase for it because it's so many different outlets that you're expressing yourself and being that assist in someone expressing themselves. With the writing and the ghostwriting, is there anything you could share with us? Like, which do you prefer? If you could only do one, would you ghostwrite or would you write?
Meaning write for myself, as myself versus ghostwrite for another, because even copywriting in many cases is a form of ghostwriting, right? It's often for my clients.
That's what I mean. Yeah. Would you rather write for others or write for yourself?
Or write for myself. Given the choice, I would rather write for myself. We've talked about this a little bit, but I have a novel that I am working on pitching to agents at the moment to get published that I'm super excited about. I love to write creative fiction. My genre I specialize in is magical realism. I love to write short stories and poetry, and I'm also part of a writers roundup group that meets every other week for a couple hours over Zoom to share our fiction and give each other feedback. So I'm active in the fiction writing space as well on a personal level. I also have started to edit some fiction. Moving into that for my business has been enjoyable as well. I think for me, I would always rather write in my own voice given the choice. Really, with fiction, I'm writing still as a ghostwriter is how I see it because I'm writing for my characters.
For the character, yes.
Yeah, I'm channeling the characters. They're telling me what's happening in the story. But because I'm the main creator of that, rather than seeing myself as kind of a method actor, if you will, like thinking about my clients and, imagining their voice as I'm ghostwriting, there is an extra element there that comes in of listening when I ghostwrite. So it is a bit more of multitasking involved because as I write, I also need to consider, is this actually something this person would write? Am I staying true to their message? Is this in their voice? Am I getting across the theme or the call to action they're trying to convey? All of those pieces are part of that whole ghostwriting process. Whereas when I'm writing just for myself and my characters for fiction, it feels much freer. There is a lightness to it because it's a free-flowing channel that I don't need to be thinking about all those other pieces.
Right. I could imagine that. That makes sense. I have spoken to several people that have hired you for ghostwriting assistants, and one in particular was blown away. She said it's almost like she invaded my brain and put forth what I would have said if I could have gotten out of my own way. So, and I'm mentioning that
so
right
kind.
now just on unsolicited plug, but if you're hesitant to write and you're scared about it and you want a ghostwriter, reach out to Kristen, because I have heard now from 7 people that it was pretty extraordinary.
Thank you. I really appreciate that. Yeah, it's one of my favorite things to do, to ask questions. I have a really good coach who emphasizes the importance of asking the right questions. And then, of course, like I mentioned, there's the listening, right? So you can ask the questions, but you have to listen in order to know which questions are the right questions to ask. So it takes
Right.
this deep level of listening and then paying attention, and then, of course, note-taking. So even though, yes, we have fantastic AI note-takers nowadays, I still prefer to take all my own notes, and I work off of those. I have the AI as a backup if I ever need to reference, but 99% of the time, I'm using my own notes because I trust how I'm hearing what's coming through. And there is a space between, right, as people talk about,
Yes.
that sometimes someone might say something, but they actually mean something different, or they might answer a question in one way, but I can tell there's a deeper layer that we need to get to in order to really get the real answer. So that requires further questioning. And that's like paying attention to that space between. That involves that concept of like, I need to be listening for that and looking for that. And that's a lot of factors. That's why I love Zoom and Google Meet, right? If there are people I'm writing for across the country or even the world, like I can see their faces. So I can see their body language as we're talking. That makes a huge difference.
And you can see their micro expressions and just the simple change in energy. You can perceive it when you're seeing them.
Absolutely.
Change in body language. Yeah. It allows you to put the emphasis on the right syllable.
Exactly. As Mike Myers would say.
That's right. Yeah. So how long have you been at this editor extraordinaire, copywriter, ghostwriter, creative writer? How long have you been in this game?
Well, in the game overall, I would say over 20 years. I've been doing this my whole career. However, officially as the creative queen of joyful communications, I've been doing it for 3 years. So in December, I celebrated 3 years of my business, and it has been just an extraordinary journey. In the various companies, organizations, careers, I will even say, because I hopped around to different industries in the last 20 plus years, I really gained a lot of experience. I wore a number of hats. I worked at schools, I worked at nonprofits, I worked at CPA firms, I worked as a property manager. I was really all over the place, but everywhere I went, whoever was my boss, as soon as they discovered that I loved to write and that I was a good writer, I was given the task of doing all of the writing. So I became the writer for the business as well. That was a hat they put on me as well. So I would write all the marketing copy. I would be the ghostwriter for the boss often. So I learned ghostwriting that way early on. And I just really enjoyed, again, asking all the questions, listening to people throughout whatever role it was that I was in. It always involved human connection. And really, ultimately, that's what I believe our words are for. They're to connect us and to build empathy. And that's what storytelling does for us as humans.
Well, I need to know, out of all of the various industries that you put your foot in for any length of time, which one was the craziest?
The craziest? The craziest by far was a private, it was a nonprofit, a Montessori school that I worked at. And I was both a development director and an HR director. I did both roles at the same time.
Okay.
In many jobs I had, I would have more than one full-time role.
Right.
I think that's part of why when I described what I do in joyful communications, it covers a lot of ground, right?
You're juggling a lot.
I love breadth. I love being able to explore and learn and do many things at once. So I was always the yes person, like, yes, I'll try that. I'll learn that. And in the majority of roles I went into, that one included, there were not many previous, there was no training. Excuse me, there was no previous person to say, here's how you do this role, right? I might have received a binder or some very basic instruction, but overall I was teaching myself. I was learning how to do the role. And that job or jobs in particular was one of the craziest, but also one of the most fulfilling. I was managing 80 staff members, mostly teachers. I was really enjoying helping them better their lives and make good choices for themselves, whether that was health and well-being, whether that was how to work with students. It would inevitably involve students and families at times. There was a lot of crossover. It was a small, very, family owned and run school. So it was very communal. And I really valued that about that experience. So while it was chaotic, because it was like always on and there was always something to do and always something new to learn and many people to communicate with in a given day. I loved it. I learned so much and grew a lot through that experience. Yeah,
I think that
you're asking the craziest. That was probably the craziest. Yeah.
I'm impressed. I heard that you mentioned property management in there, and if I had made my guess prior, I would have said the property management was probably the craziest. Yes, schools also. Like you said, it's different realms of communication and rings of communication that overlap because, like you said, there's staff, there's teachers, there's the students, parents, incoming. People considering, it's a lot of moving parts there, but it sounds really intriguing.
I think the property management was probably number 2. Now that you're saying that, I'm like, yeah, but that was in my 20s. I was younger. I was fresh out of college. It was for a commercial property. And I was I was managing the TIs. I was helping with that and the, incoming tenants and helping them learn everything. It was everything from talking to tenants to writing a process manual to climbing up on the roof with the HVAC vendor. Like it was all the things. But as the building was still being built and, it was incredible. I loved everything. Again, I loved learning. Nobody was in the position before me. I just stepped in. They had a need and I said, great, I'll do it.
And you figured it out. So you're very resourceful.
Yes. Yeah. That's probably one of my top qualities. Yeah.
Yeah. I was going to say it's probably one of your innate skills and also probably closely tied to one of your core values of being that resourceful and creative and able to, solve puzzles and figure things out and impact people when you do it. So that's really intriguing. And I believe that's probably a big part of not just your success, but also your enjoyment of your career and how you continue to have passion and you continue to expand.
Yeah, I think that's true. I was just talking about this with a friend yesterday about resourcefulness and how much I value it. So it's interesting it's coming up. I think for me, it's directly tied to freedom. It is, like you said, it's creativity, right? I don't use the word resourceful as often as I use creativity. And I think of it as they're all opportunities to be creative, right? Anytime that we problem solve, we're being creative. We're using critical thinking. And at the same time, I think it was, as we were talking before, you mentioned the phrase, you are free. And I have that in a banner I have made over my bed that I look at every day, multiple times a day. And it says, you are free. And that's just an affirmation because I do believe that freedom is a core value of mine. And being resourceful allows you and enables you to be free. Because in any given situation, you can call it being scrappy. You can call it being resourceful. You can call it being a connector, right? Like knowing who to turn to, being a learner, right? Like all of those are elements of being resourceful and they all lead to freedom in my experience.
Yes,
so
they do.
I feel really grateful for that as a skill set, as a strength of mine. I think it's been built over time. I don't think it was something that I was necessarily born with, but I think I learned it over time.
Good.
I learned that my life was better.
And it's a skill that you honed.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I found it was valued. I found other people valued it. Yeah.
So what happened in 2022 where you said, that's it, this December, I'm launching my own company?
Well, it was a divorce. So I went through my second divorce. It was a COVID relationship. So we had met right at the start of COVID and he moved in quickly and we got married pretty quickly. We were only married a year and a half and then we divorced. So it was just it became very apparent early on that it was not a good match. And I learned a lot of hard lessons. I had done a lot of work from my first divorce. My kid's dad, I have 2 teenagers, and their dad and I divorced almost 10 years ago now. And it's harmonious. We co-parent well and care deeply about our kids.
Right.
So I had hopes that, I dated and I had hopes that I might marry again. And then I met someone. And I think because of the extreme circumstances that happened around the pandemic, maybe my mindset was not as discerning as it could have been. And I chose to marry someone that, for various reasons, that ended up not being a good fit for me. And I abandoned myself. I abandoned my voice in that marriage. And when I finally agreed, it was mutual. We both agreed we weren't going to continue with the marriage after counseling and ended it. I felt so free. I realized
Good.
like at first it felt tragic. It felt, like, oh my gosh, this is happening again. Oh my gosh, I did this to my kids. I brought someone into our lives and they had to, go through this whole process, right? A whole destination wedding, a whole thinking this man was going to be their stepdad and this was going to be our new family for the rest of their lives. And then poof, very quickly, it all kind of exploded. And yet I learned that children are nothing if not resilient and
Correct.
that they are also extremely discerning. And my own kids are even more discerning than I am. One of the core principles I've taught them over their lives is to question everything.
Mm-hmm.
And so they did. And they certainly questioned him and my choice, right? To marry him, to love him. And when all was said and done and he left and moved out and we were back to our core family of 3 here in our home,
Right.
it felt like all was right with the world again. I found my voice again. My kids felt like they had space again to themselves. He took up a lot of space, we'll put it that way. And so it
That
felt
was
like, yeah.
that had to be glorious. That had to be like a like you probably felt like you could breathe deeply. All of you, the kid,
Yeah.
and probably didn't have to say anything. You all three of you probably even sensed it at the same time of like,
Yeah. We had several dinners. We would just sit around the dinner table after that divorce and just look at each other
Yeah.
and smile and just breathe and just
Yeah.
say, wow, we are so grateful for our home, for each other, for this space, for this time. So even though, yes, I was grieving, I was going through a process of grieving, really not necessarily him because I knew that he and that marriage were not right for me, but I was grieving
Right.
the story that I thought I had written for my life,
Yes.
that I thought I
Yes.
had chosen, that I thought had chosen me and that was going to be where my future was, existed. And it
Right.
didn't. It kind of poof went away very quickly, but of my own choice, right? I
Yes.
resourcefully determined, through help with a therapist, like, this is not a good match. This is not a good fit. We both need to go our separate ways. And in the end, it was better for me. It was better for the kids. And I believe it was better for him. So
Good.
that, all in all, led to me deciding, well, what better time than
Yeah.
rock bottom to start a business, right? And he had convinced me during COVID when he'd moved in and we were living together to leave my full-time job at the Montessori school.
Okay.
And so I had left that and I had agreed, thought that was the right thing to do. It was a very stressful time. Certainly anybody who went through being in HR during COVID understands how stressful that is.
Yes.
And because of that stress and because of his ability at that time to provide for us as a family, I said, okay, but it didn't feel good to me. I have always been someone who likes providing for myself and for my family and being resourceful. So it felt very off to me. And so as soon as we knew we were divorcing, I knew this is my chance to create the business I really want to create. And I had started Joyful Communications, honestly, like 10, 12 years prior as a small freelance thing. And it didn't last much more than a year. I ended up kind of firing all my clients, went into a different job. I was not ready. I was not in a position as a young mom of toddlers to decide this is like, I'm going to go full throttle on this.
Right.
And I didn't really know what I wanted at that time. This time, I was coming out of a marriage where I had abandoned my voice. I knew what I wanted. I knew I wanted to have a voice. I wanted to share my story. I wanted to share other people's stories. I wanted to write. I have always loved to write. Since I was little, I've known I'm going to be a novelist. I've known that I'm here to write stories. And my dharma in this world, which is a yogic term, is to express joy through words and through movement. I'm also a dancer. So
Nice.
there is a lot of creativity and expressiveness in my life through the arts, and it's really, really important to me. So that's how the business came about. And I will say, because of my resourcefulness, I actually thrived under the pressure of like no income in the
Good.
beginning, right? Like, I got to make
Right.
this work. I got to keep paying our mortgage. I've got to, take care of my kids. Like, it helped me get really resourceful and really develop those connections. We were talking about connection with people who had supported me for years. I think that's one thing that hopefully women find when they go through divorce and hard times is that we actually have big communities. We have people that we have extended our octopus, tentacles out to
Right.
over the years. And like, we have our sections on all these different people
Right.
who love us, who accept us, who want to support us, that sometimes that gets kind of dismissed or lost or shut down temporarily when we're in a significant relationship, a romantic relationship. But yet when we released that, I found my community was stronger than ever. And I had so many people who were ready and willing to help. and connect me. So that was huge. And that's what I would encourage any woman who's questioning going through a divorce or going through a divorce. Like, look at where you have community. And if you're lacking it, I love Who Not How, that book by Dan
Yes.
Sullivan and Ben Hardy.
I do too.
And that whole
Yes.
idea, like, look for the who's in your life. Look for who
That's
can
right.
help you connect where you
And
need
don't be
those
afraid
connections.
to talk to them, and don't be afraid to
Yeah.
ask.
Yeah,
If you don't ask, you don't give them a chance to say yes.
absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. So
And that's hard. I think as women, we
it's hard.
sometimes don't want to ask. We don't know how to ask for help, or we don't want to. We feel guilty or shame or whatever it is.
And especially as resourceful, spunky, creative, independent, I'm going to throw that one in there.
Right.
Sometimes it feels uncomfortable to ask. And that's why I'm glad you brought that up and that we're discussing it here. And by the way, you and I both know that it definitely hits women. I think it hits men too.
Yeah.
Maybe it's in different areas or different manners, but I think it hits them as well. So anyone listening that happens
in some
to
ways
be human or any dogs
yeah.
nearby, ask. Connect and ask. And you know what? It might be no. Maybe the no is going to be what you need to hear to move in another direction or take action yourself. Or it could be yes, and you're impacting them in a positive manner just as much as they're helping you. So I think that's really exciting. So you restart, rekindle joyful communication and grabbed by the horns. You took I got to pay these bills. You're like, I've got to get my money. You took that to make sure you stayed active and strategic, doing what you needed to do to make it profitable. What's exciting to me, you had it sounds, I could hear it in your voice. You had I'm reclaiming my voice. I am making this happen for myself and others, that I am going to reclaim my voice and I'm going to encourage this communication and allow this to flow through me and through this company and through everyone who's going to work with me. Now you've built the business to a point where, as you mentioned earlier, you're now starting to edit some nonfiction and you're writing more of your own fiction. So what were the few things that gave you the freedom, I'll use the word of the day, to say now is the right time? I can delegate or leverage or empower someone else to take over this, so I am now able to do that.
I think it was the realization of what you brought up earlier of independence, that I can't do it all myself, nor does that serve my clients or the people, anybody that I'm working with well or in the best way, right? And I naturally want to expand. I want to scale. I want to grow, and I want to help more people. Well, an obvious way to help more people when you own a business is to hire people to do work that you either can't do or need help doing. So I have a number of contractors that I work with who are my team that I love and have trained to do various elements of the business, whether that's copywriting, ghostwriting, editing, and they're phenomenal. And there are people around the country who help me and are very skilled writers and editors and understand the type of projects that we work on. And I remember when I was little, my grandmother used to tell me a story about I would sit in the car seat in the car and she would come over to buckle my seatbelt, and I would look at her defiantly. This is like 2 or 3 years old. And I would say, I'll do it. That was her most prominent story. You know how grandparents are known for repeating stories, right? About you. That was the story she would tell about me over and over to me or to other people who knew me. And, I would kind of, okay, that sounds true. But now as I'm older, she passed several years ago. And I think back on that was so central to who I was at such a young age, that I'll do it. I'm the oldest of 3, and I really, really wanted to be independent. I wanted to be the one who would do it, right? When you're a business owner, there is a certain amount of release of that. You have to let some of that go, because otherwise you can't grow. If you think you can do it all, you're wrong, just period.
Correct.
It's just not, and it's not sustainable. It's not kind to yourself or to the people that you're serving. And this has taken me a long time to learn. It's a work in progress. I'm still learning it. Let's be real. And so I'm learning how to delegate, how to manage and assign work and review work, because I'm always still the final eyes on everything. It's my business. It's my reputation. And I care deeply about my clients and about the work. I love the craft of writing and of editing, of creating stories that are really powerful to go out into the world. I think words hold a lot of power, and I think we need to be careful with them. And I think we need to be intentional with them and really infuse them with love And so
Yes.
in order to do that, I can't 100% just say, take it and run with it to contractors, right? To anybody who's helping me. I still need to be involved in that process. So I will always have some role like that, right? In my own business. I don't foresee that I will be someone who just completely steps out, although that works for some business owners. But for me, because it's my passion and I'm doing what I love, I enjoy it. I want to be in there. And I choose people to work with who I really like. I like talking to on the phone. I like spending time with them. So that's a huge part of it. Yeah. I don't know if I answered your question. I kind of went off on a tangent.
And it allows you to have scalability. As you said, you can't grow. You cannot scale and expand and still have good quality control, still have your voice and fingerprints on it, without leveraging. It's one of the things that I work on most often with my coaching that I do, because I'm sure you've been in this position on the receiving end at some of your jobs in your previous careers, and now as a businesswoman, business owner. Sometimes we think that we're doing a favor to the employees. Oh, I'll take care of that. Oh, I'll do that. Yeah, don't worry about that. I'll do it. When actually, and oftentimes in politeness, they'll say like, okay, you're actually really stepping on their toes, or you're making them feel devalued or undervalued or unseen. Because they're probably thinking to themselves, did she really think I couldn't do that myself? Does she not trust me? Right. And then we have people that leave all of a sudden out of the blue and we didn't know. Oops, I'm blindsided. Are you really? And then other times it's control freak. You do think they can't do it as well as I can. But yet it's definitely a key area for, I'd say, anyone in management or leadership or an owner of a company. If you want true growth, one of the best ways is creating your success by supporting others and being successful in their own right. And that includes leverage and giving them some authority and allowing them to fail forward and all of that. And I love to hear what you said about, especially in a creative field, you're still the finalize. So you're the one, so it's still going to have your expertise and the gift that you bring to the table, but it's allowing you to now write and expand into nonfiction and writing more of your own work. Could you share a little bit about, if you're able to, share anything about the first fiction novel that you're editing? I don't mean details, but...
Yeah, no, I won't share details. It is in the Gothic genre, which is interesting to me. I know.
I love
a little
Gothic.
Spicy, a little dark.
Cool.
The main characters are women, and it's a local author. So I'm based in Phoenix, Arizona, and he's a local author here. And I met with him over Zoom, and I hope to meet him in person. But I'm really enjoying the process of editing his book and helping him. And it is his first novel, so helping him prepare it for publication. And it's so fascinating and enjoyable. And it's such a joy to help other writers shape their words. And I've had this experience personally because I turned my novel over after revising it umpteen times to a professional editor and had her give me her edits and found it so valuable. So I know the value of getting another set of eyes to take a look and really help you shape your story. I have a questionnaire I go through with authors to make sure that I'm understanding what they're going for in their novel and or their nonfiction book, to make sure that I am helping as I go through the editing process, that I'm not cutting anything or changing anything that they wouldn't want cut or changed, right? But then there's also a certain level of freedom if there's different types of editing. So if they're interested in developmental editing or structural editing, there's bigger picture ways that I can look at the novel. I love personality tests and the ways they help us understand ourselves. And one of them I've taken is called Colby. The Colby Index is incredible. And in that, I have a certain set of, you get 4 numbers that stand for certain things that your strengths are in, your MO, essentially. And that my numbers sum up that I'm a strategic planner. My MO in life is to help people strategically plan. So developmental editing is a natural gift of mine, to look at an entire book and say, well, actually, it looks like you're missing a concept here, or this chapter would be better served if it was later in the book versus earlier. So that's a really fun process for me. And that's also part of what I'm going through with this fiction author too, is looking at, okay, where would it make sense to change certain concepts, or just digging a little deeper into it, where, sometimes when you're writing first draft, second draft, even revising in revision mode, as writers, we don't always see all of those pieces. We just can't
That's
because we're
right.
in it,
That's
you
right.
know,
Yeah.
in anything in life. That's why we need coaches like you.
Yeah. And why I still have coaches as well. So I think that's really, it's just such an exciting element of what you're creating. And I know that there's different versions of this that I'm sure show up in copywriting and in nonfiction, but the tapping into your creative side must be slightly more fulfilling when you're doing that now with this first nonfiction. I'm excited for you that you're getting a chance to
Yeah.
do that.
It is. Thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah, I hope to get into more editing, more fiction, working with more fiction authors. I also love memoir. So I am finishing up a memoir / autobiography that I'm ghostwriting and loving that process.
Nice.
So there's so many different genres to write in. And again, because I love the breadth of life and of all the things that we can learn, I really enjoy exploring those different genres and challenging myself to write in different forms and different styles, different voices, right? So it's enjoyable.
So you did mention how much you enjoy just obviously working with authors, and you have a community. Could you share a little bit more about your author community and how that
Sure.
factors into everything you do?
Yeah. So the community is called Authors in Action. And we meet twice a month over Zoom for an hour and a half each time. And we go through different exercises. We do some writing with prompts. We do some kind of Q&A and laser coaching to help the authors as they're moving through writing their book. We talk about practical things like their timeline or how to market their book, how to pitch their book, any element of the writing process that they might be struggling with. I also share inspirational quotes, and we have concentrated time because a huge part for writers of getting their work done is getting the work done, right? It is taking the time and being accountable and sitting there and doing the work. So we always take a chunk of time of that hour and a half. I try and have it be at least half an hour to work on our own solo work that we're working on. And we're all just there working together at the same time. They can always chime in and ask me questions as they're working. And it gives us that opportunity to be connected and yet focused, right, on what we're doing. So we know that every author, when they leave that meeting, has made progress on what they're working on. And I work a lot with a concept from an author named Sark called micro movements that I love. That's the idea of taking anything that takes you less than 5 minutes and getting started on that thing. And you can create something called a micro movement wheel. So I work with my authors on that so that we move on our books like little by little each time between our meetings. We're making those movements, and that helps us be able to grow and expand and develop and get our work done, you know, because for many writers, that is the hardest part, is sitting down to write.
Yes.
Yeah.
And feeling as if you cannot time block for inspiration or creativity. And so they'll resist it. When in reality, if you create the time blocks, usually your body is going to synchronize in it and you'll get more done. Yeah, you get it. I'm glad you're doing that.
And it snowballs, which is beautiful.
It snowballs.
Too, you know,
it does.
So, yeah,
it does. What are your thoughts on people using AI to write?
The magic question.
The magic question.
I have a lot of thoughts. I think it can serve certain purposes. I think it can be good for basic functions, like possibly outlining, maybe brainstorming. It can be great for research, especially if you use an AI tool that cites well. There are some major ones that do not. So be mindful of that.
Yes.
A lot of AI makes things up and will create false citations. So you always want to check that, especially if you're quoting anything. But in my experience overall, I prefer to and have a high value of creating human-made content. So my contractors and I all work making everything from scratch on our own as humans writing. And there's a reason for that. I think that the way that we write as humans currently, AI will evolve and it will grow, and this may change. So I may eat my words later. But for now, there's a lot of AI slop in the world. There's a lot of, if you don't put in the right input, you don't get the right output. And there is a lot of just crap, of badly written content that is out there posing as good content or accurate content that is not.
That is not.
And it's not only misleading, I think it's dangerous at times. I think there is plagiarism happening. I think there is, all sorts of things happening. There's intellectual property violations. There are a lot of issues and a lot of laws around this that are, being discussed and developed because it's problematic. The ethics around AI are not understood, are not agreed upon by all. And it is also generating new things. I saw something recently about there's some AI that has created its own like forum for AI, and humans are not allowed and can't get in. And it is AI asking AI about how to help their human. So there are certain things happening that are fascinating and interesting to see, maybe a little scary depending on your perspective. I think that overall, in general, my experience has been when I've played around with it because I'm familiar with it. I knew this is part of my industry. I need to understand it and get familiar with it. From studies, there's a study that's come out from MIT on this, like it does not create work that is feel-good work, that is meaningful work. So when you create or write, I use that term loosely, through AI or use AI writing, you're giving up your critical thinking in many ways.
Right.
You
Yes.
are giving up your curiosity. You are giving up your creativity. And those are like the 3 core C's that I see that are being lost as humans default to and delegate to AI. And there is evidence that's showing that's actually contributing to like the signs and markers of dementia, which is very scary to think about. That if we keep going down this road and we don't use our critical thinking, there's a reason that resourcefulness works, right?
That's right.
We learn. We need adversity to grow. And that's to grow brain cells. That's to grow neural pathways, to become smarter, more connected with each other.
To have a great self-perspective and to feel good about ourselves. When, all of that. When you overcome a challenge, you feel better about yourself and your confidence and your ability to care for yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I don't know about other readers out there, but as a reader, I would so much rather read a human written book than an AI written book. I have edited
and I
mostly
also,
AI written work, and it's boring.
I think that it's showing up not just in words, but also in visual. Some of the visuals that are online are horrendous.
Yeah.
So it's funny. One of my clients today, she texted me an AI created caricature of her real estate team. And she said, "What do you think?" And I looked at it closely and I said, "This one actually looks pretty good." And then she said, "Let me show you this one." One of her friends had it done for her team and she has 3 arms and you don't even notice it right away. You have to like look. So we had a good chuckle about that. So it is, like you said, who knows what it's going to evolve to.
Yeah.
But it still has a way to go. And do we want to lose that in the arts? And I don't know this for a fact. There's one movie that flopped pretty dang hard at the very beginning of last year. I should have been in the target demographic for it, and I wouldn't touch it with a 10-foot pole. There were some rumors going around that the script had been predominantly AI, and it was a horrible movie. But maybe that was 2 years ago, 18 months ago. It was a while ago. But so it's showing up. It's interesting now because now we're starting to see, do people want it or not want it? Where do you want it? Where you don't want it? I know for myself, if I am writing a quick email to send someone some information they requested, sure, I don't care. Do it, whatever. That could be fine. If that allows my assistant to make it sound like me and get it out quickly, great. If I am writing which, as you know, I did write a chapter to be in a collaborative book. And then I also did some Q&A. That's got to be me, right? So I zero interaction with anything on AI. But
and I also go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
I was just going to say to that point, this experience having written your own chapter and your own work for a collaborative work. There is a transformational process that you go through when you write with anything in the arts. As a dancer, this is true for me, dancing.
Right.
There is something that happens when you create and you express artistically of your own volition. And if you're outsourcing that, why? And what are you getting from it? Right? Like, I think as humans, and this is something as entrepreneurs we're aware of, people are always asking, what's in it for me? Right? Like, what do I get out of this? And that's what I would encourage people to look at and ask about AI is what's actually in this for me? What am I giving up by making this choice? And what am I getting out of it by making this choice? And I think efficiency may not be all it's cracked up to be at the end of the day. I think there's so much more to life and to living fully, the meaning that we draw from it and the creative expression that we can share with each other. For me, that's what I'm here for. That's what I'm interested in.
On a positive, I guess, note, or possibly sort of sad note, from what I can tell you with working with, similar to you, so many people all around the country, one of the biggest things that some people are getting from it is a friend. So they're jokingly
Yeah.
saying like, oh, my best friend, but I dig a little deeper and they're literally communicating with it throughout the day. And I've asked some questions and they're like, yeah, I actually say, thank you, please. So they're literally communicating as if it is another person. And I think it's actually satisfying part of, not to get totally off subject, but the whole loneliness epidemic. Some people are
Yeah.
seeking. Anyway,
Yeah. I don't think that's off subject at all. That's
no,
connection, right? And that it points to a need, right? That people need to
it
feel
does.
connected. And
Yeah.
I just wonder how different it would be for them and maybe more satisfying if they were connecting with a human. And if there was
Right.
a way to facilitate that, I don't know. I don't know why people would turn to AI instead of to a human. I'm not sure because I don't do it myself.
Well, I think I don't do that myself either. I think from talking to people that are doing it, guess who never talks back and loves unconditionally and thinks you're great and gets the humor you get and learns how to repeat it back to you and is going to give constructive criticism when you ask for it, but a lot of times it's going to just make you feel good, right? So it's like a robot dog. It's going to always wag its tail. When you open it, it's going to be glad to see you. It's interesting. And I don't, then I think of that movie, Her, so we're in an interesting time. It's a great time to be alive, right?
That's a great movie.
Kind of cool
and
that we're all experiencing it.
I know. It begs the question of like, where do we find love?
Yeah.
What makes us feel loved? And is that really love? Right? Because that's really, right. We all want to be loved. And I think to give love too. We all want to give love. But I think that giving part gets lost with a robot,
Right.
I would think. I don't know, but I would guess.
It's
more fulfilling if you get a response that's like accurate to, human,
Right.
which I think points to what kind of full circle we were talking about in the beginning of listening and empathy. It just points to, people who are seeking it that way are seeking connections with people who will listen, who will love them, who will understand them and have empathy for their situation, for their story. So,
and it's easy. You don't have to leave your house. You don't have to get up or go anywhere. So I'm curious if it's going to turn into that similar like dopamine hit that people get from social media and they're active on social, but they're connecting less and they're feeling more isolated. We're in an interesting time. You're going to have to come back again so we can dive deeper on that subject because it is fascinating to see where all of that could go.
Yeah, I would love to dive deeper on this. There's so much to talk about here. But yeah,
I'd love
I just
to
don't
have
think
you
we
back.
get thanks. I don't think we get resourceful from things being easy.
We do not.
Put that out there.
We don't. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I have to ask this as well. And you can only pick one. Who is your absolute favorite author?
Margaret Atwood.
Margaret Atwood. Excellent.
Mm-hmm.
And what is your absolute favorite novel?
Absolute favorite novel. While she is my favorite author, there's so many good novels.
I know.
That's so hard.
That's
like
easy.
Remember
you said you don't get sharper if things are easy. You'll grow from the hardness.
Novel. I think it would be Beloved by Toni Morrison.
Oh, nice. Excellent. All right.
Yeah. It's a close tie with The Color Purple by Alice Walker. Those two for me are, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, very good. This has been fascinating. And I'm not even joking, especially as you continue developing your novel and your services. I would love to have you back again. You and I were connected through a real human, one of my previous podcast guests, Mel Carr, and I'm part of the collaborative book that she is putting out. And her Six Figure Chicks organization, which has been, I believe it's one of your clients, and it's Humans Connecting. Yay. I'm excited about that. And I would love to have you back again. If you are listening to our podcast, you made it with us through this conversation. I hope that you'll come back again as well and join me on another episode of The Inner Estate. Kristen, I am going to have all of your contact information anywhere you're consuming this podcast. And I want to thank you so much for everything you shared today. You're an inspiration for anyone out there that is looking and thinking about expressing their voice, reclaiming their voice, and filling their life with more joy. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Bridget, for having me. This was such a delight.